Professor Brain Brown's research shows that vulnerability fosters good emotional and mental health. It is a sign of courage. We become more resilient and brave when we embrace who we truly are and what we are feeling. The Vulnerable Scientist podcast is a space for scientists to tell their honest and authentic stories. I am your host, Sarah Nyakeri, who happens to be a scientist, informal science communicator, and I help scientists create personal websites. If you want to support this show, go to www.patreon.com/thevulnerable-scientist. You can also follow this podcast on all social media platforms at TV Scientist Pod. How did you feel you've been looking for this guy, then you have chomed your fare, you've used fare for all the way from Udhiru to Karen, which is a distance because you have to go to town, then to take a mat to Karen, which is now money, then come back running to meet this guy who's back at nearly where you came from.
Yes.
And he listens, then he tells you, I don't have a project. And at that moment, because you are hopeful, right?
Very. In fact, let me tell you, my entire life I've always loved to dress very casually, t-shirts and jeans. This is the sort of person that I am. But on that particular day, I was wearing the one and only suit that I had.
Wow.
So that tells you how important that meeting was. Because we were supposed to meet in person, yeah?
Yeah.
We were supposed to meet him in his office and we'd made an appointment. And it was a very important day for me.
Yes.
I was wearing my one and only suit and my best shoes.
But do you think how people dress shows how important they take something? Is it a thing?
Yes, I think so. Of course, it depends with the environment.
Yeah.
There are certain environments where if you don't show up a certain way, then you don't command presence. And commanding presence is important. So you have to understand the rooms you're walking into.
Yeah.
You don't walk into all rooms the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely something that you have to always have at the back of your mind. Even when I say that I'm a casual dresser, I am very aware that there are spaces where I can't show up the way I'd like to on an ordinary day. That example I'm giving you into that scientist's office wearing a suit is one of those. So yes.
So was this your first rejection?
No. But I think the reason why it had such a huge impact on me, it was like the cherry on the cake. I'd been to so many places and I'd been told no. But I guess in all of those places, the no's were really very nice no's, we'd love to have you, but hey, we can't. And the people were really very forward, and there were no games. They were straight cut to the chase. I read your CV, I see what you're looking for.
I don't have that.
I don't have that right now. I think you'd be a good fit if I had something like that. I'll keep you posted.
Yeah.
You get those, and then there are places where you get no response, especially when you send unsolicited emails.
Unsolicited emails, the rejections that you had were when mostly with the no replies kind of rejections, or mostly from the unsolicited emails. Yeah, that's what you're saying.
Yes. So there was that, yeah, and that was perfectly fine. You're able to deal with that, but also I was now about to say that the reason why this particular incident at the National Museums, I think, took a toll on me or impacted me in the way that it did, and the reason why it remains, I think, heavy for me is, I think it was the culmination of all those things. It was now, the cherry on the cake. Yeah. All these things have gone wrong, and then, or I have had all these no's, and then this huge no in your face after all the effort, I think. But prior to that, I'd had a previous experience, which now in retrospect, I don't really know how I feel about it, because I think it is even a bigger problem. It's like a systemic issue that when I looked at it, I thought, maybe I'm not really this was not really targeted on me. To me, it was something bigger than me. Because I went to a certain place, names withheld, and I showed up at the admin assistant's office, and this lady looked at my CV. She said, "Oh, you're looking for a project? Oh, wow, okay, you're studying this. Oh, there are lots of students here, and they get projects from, the big boss, the PI. And wow, you might just get a project here." And then she relooked my CV again, and then she paused, and she said, "Oh." And then I asked her, "Oh, why? What's wrong?" She said, "Oh my gosh, I hadn't looked through your stuff properly. With this sort of name that you have, you wouldn't be able to get a project here.
Oh my God.
The big boss here doesn't take people from your tribe."
Oh my goodness. I was not expecting that. I was like, what is that? In your CV all of a sudden has appeared out of nowhere.
Out of the blues. Completely. I was so stunned.
Oh my goodness.
I was so stunned. I didn't know what to say to her. She looked at me. She said, "You look like a great person. You look like you could make a great student, but I wouldn't even hand this over to him."
Like she knew.
Yeah, she was like, "I won't, because I know the response that will come through, and it's not."
Well,
and I wouldn't want to be the person to give that sort of feedback. So let me just tell you the truth. And I think she said this to me because maybe she'd gone through this so many times with other people. And now she'd gotten to a point where she's just tired of it, and then she's just telling people in the face. The guy here doesn't,
take students from your tribe.
So I looked at her, asked her, "Tribe?" She said, "Yes."
Yani, there's a possibility to get a project, and the only reason I can't get a project is because I have a name called Wanjiku.
Yes.
At the end of my CV. Has nothing to do with my experience. Oh my goodness.
Something I didn't choose. I didn't choose the name for myself. I didn't choose where I come from. I just found myself, same as they found themselves in different places. But this is how they feel. And the reason why it didn't hurt me is I was so shocked. I just thought, this is not a big problem. This is not me. They have a problem.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with you. Hey, I love that you responded to that immediately, like that. Like, this has nothing to do with me. This has nothing to do with my qualifications. They are the problem.
Yes, I mentally checked out of the possibility of them being in that place. I actually told this lady, "Please hand me back my paperwork." Because she said, don't we just keep, maybe the next person. I'm like, "No, give me back my paperwork. Like, give me my CV, give me my cover letter."
Did you think that maybe if you, like, okay, because it seems true, right? From her reaction, it seems very true.
It was very honest and very, spontaneous. So it's not something that she came up with.
Did it ever occur to you at some point that maybe it's not true? Or maybe you should have tried?
No, I did not want even to pursue that possibility.
Yeah.
I was just like, this is not the place for me. No. All the alarm bells in my head went, no. I do not want anything to do with this place. I mentally just checked out.
So I'm imagining you told this story to your mom, right?
She was stunned. Anybody I've ever told this, they're like, "What?"
I'm curious, okay, because it has nothing really to do with the kind of tribe it was, but that's a thing. And I was having this discussion with myself. Myself. The other day. Sorry?
People have monologues. I also have conversations with myself all the time.
I even remember where I was facing at. I was getting into town and there's something I was looking at. Then I just thought, this tribe thing, it's if I have a friend who comes from a different tribe from me, and you've made me remember. There's this thing that happened when I got my MSc. I was already looking. That's why I'm really connected with your story when it comes to you looking for a project for your MSc. But like you just went all in. Like I thought I was struggling, but man, you went all in with looking for a project.
Yeah.
So when I finally found, I was in a very toxic environment when I finally found a project. Then I dropped out of it. Then I luckily found this project that I was doing at ILRI. So when I had just found a project, and I was really looking for an opportunity, and when I had just found a project, and I would think it was my second week actually. I think it was my second week, and I get this call from one of my previous classmates, and this classmate, let me just anonymize as much as possible. This classmate calls me and says, Sarah, there's this opportunity. You know this internships that are usually advertised, right?
Yes.
Yeah, from the government, internships. Yeah, so that person told me there's this opportunity for these internships. There's this guy who comes from our tribe, together with the person who called me, that is looking for someone from the kinsmanship who could get that opportunity. So at first I was like, huh? Because my best friend is I'm Kisi. My best friend is Kikuyu. And when he told me there's an opportunity, the first thing I thought was, my best friend wants that opportunity. If I told her there's this opportunity, she will jump on it, because if I have a place, like, why would I want to run to, you already have a space. Why do you want to jump on into everything? So I just thought of her, and I was like, but that so-and-so doesn't have an opportunity, and we are friends, why didn't you ask her? And that person was like, she's not from the kinsmanship. I would love that she would be given that opportunity, but I'm not in control here, and you understand what's going on with this tribal thing. But there's an opportunity, they want a kisi, and so I was like, okay. So I remember I was quiet for a while, and this is someone who's using their own credit. I was quiet for a while and in shock. Like, I knew such things were happening with various tribes. It's not it's not a kisi thing. It's a thing that happens with various tribes. And I just sat for a moment. I just thought, like, the people who've applied for this opportunity, a lot of people who've applied for this opportunity, and they're looking. It's not like they've missed. It's not like there are no people to choose from. They're looking.
It's a long list.
Yes, but they're like, we need someone from our tribe. So they're looking for someone, desperately looking for someone outside there who's not even bothered about what's going on, so that they can give them that opportunity. As long as they don't know this person, they don't know the qualifications and everything, they're like, as long as they're from this tribe. And I think that's the first time I was in contact, like close contact with such a thing. It's like, something like that. It's something that, I'm brown skin, and people often think I'm Kikuyu. And someone will talk to me in Kikuyu, and the way they approach me is very different. They'll be like, oh, because of course they assume that I'm Kikuyu. Then if they hear my second name, which is Nyanchera, which is very clear that this person comes from Kisi, the treatment automatically changes. Or you find someone who looks at you and thinks, you're Kikuyu, right? And they're Kisi, and they treat you very differently. Like, you don't realize that. You don't realize that they're treating you differently because of your tribe. You don't realize that until you say your second name and the room changes, like the atmosphere changes, and they're so welcoming. They want to do everything for you, like the smallest to favors, and they're not like expecting anything from you just because you're from the tribe.
Yep.
Okay, I was having this discussion with someone else on this podcast, and she was talking about it's Milka. I think it's already open, something on record, so it's not like a secret. so she was talking about her moving to, was it Sweden? And, that the challenges of moving to another country and all that. Then the community that she gets is like someone sees a bracelet, because this Kenyan bracelet thing, the beads thing, and they see, oh, this is actually Kenyan, and they connect from there and become friends. And when I listened to that story, for me, I understood it from a point of people seem to connect with people they can relate with, or people who have certain similarities in certain things. And it's okay to gravitate towards someone you come from you have the same similarities in most things. But if you get to a point where you're frantically calling everyone, so
looking for that person.
Yes, looking for that person. That really annoyed me, honestly. And I stayed there for a few minutes. He's like, okay, so can you think of anyone? Because I've thought about anyone who's from our tribe who got a second-class upper, and I can't think of anyone. So, do you know anyone?
Oh, wow.
Do you? Yeah. So. Yeah. The call ended me just in shock. Like.
For me, I disengage from those sort of conversations. For me, I think it ends there. And even then,
do you know, I didn't make an effort. I don't know if I'm a bad person, but I didn't make an effort to even look for someone who comes from my tribe who has a biochemistry degree, and because I could have found someone, but I couldn't bring myself to participate in that
process, right?
Yes.
It's the same way. You see how you sort of mentally checked out on that conversation?
Yeah.
It is also the same way I checked out. At that stage, if they were to tell me, oh, but we could make exceptions. You look special. We can keep. I would have been like, no, thanks. No. This is not the kind of situation I want to be in. It's not the kind of workplace I want to.
Work environment.
And so I was like,
even if I'm desperately looking for a project and I know I'll get a project, but no.
I don't think I love that. I was going to bend that much backwards.
I love that, choosing yourself, because that's an element of choosing yourself over certain things that you want in life.
Yeah. And I knew in my heart of hearts, if I was ever in a space that people get treated like that, that was not for me. Those are not the kind of rooms I want to be in. Those are not the kind of spaces I want to occupy.
Yeah.
I mean, that is clear. So I just asked for my papers. I remember, I think I walked out and I went and had lunch by myself somewhere, and just, you know how something happens to you and you're like, I will not deal with that. You put it in a box and put it in a top compartment in your brain, push the box all the way to the back where it's dusty, and go like, no.
It's dusty.
Let's just move on. Make space for other things.
It's dusty.
Those sort of experiences you really don't want to deal with.
Yeah, you just forget about them. But it's really hard to forget that.
Yeah, it is. But I never allowed it to, to dominate my thoughts or to make me feel a certain type of way. I didn't ruminate on it, so I didn't give it room to take any shape.
Yeah.
I took it as it was, raw as it was, put it in a box, shut it out, switched off the lights, walked out of that room. And I was like, not dealing with that one. Not my monkey, not my zoo. I don't know. That's...
Oh my God, the expressions are just out of this world.
Seriously. Where do you start? Do you start by asking yourself questions? Why do I have this name?
Yeah.
How do you even allow your mind to have that sort of dialogue in your head with yourself? It's just some things. It's a me thing. I don't know about other people. I was not even, how you get, how will I say it? How you get like angry at something. I was not even angry. I was indifferent. I was like, nope, not boarding. I don't have those sort of conversations. Those are not the kind of spaces I occupy. No, so I checked out.
Okay, so that was the Rejection.
So that was one of those ones. And I think now following this other one and many others that had been there, I just, I think it took a toll. Also because, when you're searching for something and searching for it and not finding it, your self-esteem kind of takes a hit every time you're told no, even though you're like, that's just another no. Maybe I need to get 3 more no's before I can get a yes. I've always been this sort of person.
Oh, wow. I need to get 1 more no maybe before. Wow. Like 1 more no.
Yeah. Maybe it could be 1 more no or 2 more no's before I can get a yes. So, hey, let's keep going, So, but I think when you do it, so sometimes, and I feel like this is very much the same as a job search. So when you're sending out CVs and you're writing emails and you're getting onto interviews and you're not succeeding, you actually need to take a moment to disengage from the search a little bit, catch your breath, allow yourself to ride the emotions and, come back to equilibrium and then start all over again. Otherwise, you lose yourself in the process.
So how did you get out of this one?
So I went, I'm the sort of person, if I go through something, because for me, I think that was traumatic. That parking lot experience was traumatic. I went home. I am the sort of person who talks like a broken record. So I will talk today, tomorrow, the day after.
About the same thing.
About the same thing. Same radio station, same wavelength, same show.
It's like an ad. An annoying ad.
On a loop.
Oh my God. But for you, that must be a frustrating ad to someone who's listening to you. Like, they feel,
Absolutely.
Yeah, like the pain.
Yes, because every time it comes raw. But for the people who know me long enough, they know that the rawness just reduces with every outpouring. Reduces with every rant. It reduces, and I think I'm blessed to have people around me who just get it. I'm the sort of person, when something happens to me, I can sway the mood in a room, because I don't know, maybe I wear my emotions on my sleeve. So, when I come and I'm telling this story and I'm very passionate about the way I'm telling it, and everybody's like, oh my God, that is so sad. And then people are like, okay, problem shared, problem solved. And then tomorrow, we still need another session.
Repeat. This
time with less passion, and the day after. And then in 3-4 days, you don't get to hear about it again. So yeah.
I love that. I think that's a good survival thing. When something frustrates you, you don't keep it. You talk about it.
Let it out. Yes.
Until you feel like, not just once, even if with the same person, even if just repeat it until it's over. Like, I'm like, okay, now I'm ready.
You have to have people who give you that sort of space.
And listen.
And listen. You're at that stage. You don't need help. You just need
people to listen. You just need
for people to listen and rant, and not necessarily give you advice, and just for somebody to nod their head. And I guess that's why therapy for a lot of people is good, because sometimes you'll be talking to a therapist and they just be nodding their head and saying, and sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah. And
with just that outpouring of emotions and everything, you find mental solutions. You fix these things.
Yeah, because somehow. We're able to.
Yes. So I got through that and, moved on past those things. And then now, of course, I had to take a little break after that parking lot incident. And, of course, get myself together again, do this sort of cleansing to start the process all over again. And that is a stage where I talked about one of my lecturers suggesting you might want to go and see and talk to someone at ISIP. ISIP was just, down the alley from KU. It's just down the road. So, made a lot of sense. I was in the neighborhood. I'd be coming to school, coming to class, but up until then, I hadn't really thought about it. However, my mom had at some stage just mentioned, why don't you try ISIP? And it was just one of those, why don't you try here? Why don't you try there? Why don't you try somewhere else? So, I mean, there were options, but then the more I checked places off my list, the more the options kind of just narrowed.
Yeah.
Now, so here is a second voice saying, why don't you try? And the response that was in my mind was like, insects? What would I do with insects? I mean, this is where my mind was at. I mean, I hadn't really internalized it, and I hadn't given it a lot of consideration. But then she said to me, they do research, and they have all sorts of interesting research and people working. They are insects of medical importance. And then we were now having, like conversations like, okay, two people all suggesting the same place. Okay, that's eye-opening. Perhaps I could give it a shot. And so that's how I made my way to Isipe. So I went initially to try and find one of a researcher whose specialty was molecular biology at the time. And of course, I was a biochemist. So I was in training to become a biochemist. I was getting this master's degree, and molecular biology was just,
part of
the next thing that makes sense. Yeah. So I went to Isipe, and unfortunately on the day when I went to try and see this person, I met their admin assistant as well. And the admin assistant said, oh, sorry, this person is now gone, they're out of the country. They are on a work engagement somewhere and they're not around. But because you're looking for a project and you look very determined to find one, she was just like, this place has a lot of scientists who work on different things. And you kind of look like you have a skill set that could also fit in other places. So in addition to trying to track down this scientist, why don't you also think about, so she told me the departments that were there. She was a really, very nice lady. We had a really good conversation, and she actually wrote down the departments that I could try and think about.
Wow.
You remember how I said at the beginning, in the previous recording, that, life is like a series of dots.
Yeah.
Right? Just one dot leads to the next. It's just that when you're moving forward, you don't. I mean, when Steve Jobs said this and when I read this, I was like, this is phenomenal. This is what trusting the process looks like. Because I found this person. It's not somebody I'd met. It's not somebody I'd been introduced to. It's just, an angel.
Yeah.
The universe kind of just conspires and brings people your way who give you insights. And that's why it's very important when you go through life to, whenever you set an intention into the universe, whenever you ask God for something, you should be able to, even, somebody strange or a strange person packaged in a strange way can come your way. But this sort of person might just have the answer that you're looking for.
Yeah.
So the moment you make a big ask, you ask God for something, you set your intentions, you have to be open to even the strange things that come. When you look at them, you think they look strange, but sometimes some of your answers are in there somewhere. So this lady, out of the blue, she sat me down. She told me about the other departments. She told me what they do. She gave me specific names of people I could try to contact. And that was that.
And she's not gaining anything from you. She's just a random person you've just met.
Nothing.
And she's just using her time to take you through.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? And of all places, in a place like that, where you'd expect that people slam doors at you.
Yeah. Like, I don't have time.
I mean, when you're outside the walls of some of those sort of places, you think these places are inaccessible. I have to know someone. Because this is the impression that people have to know someone to be in there. To get in there, to even, And this is, I just showed up and I said, I wanted to see the scientist, and they called her. She said, no, tell that student to come through. And then she just gave me all this information. And so I left with a nice, piece of paper with all sorts of information and, potential supervisors that I could contact. And I left, and immediately I walked out of that gate. The first place I went to is a cyber cafe. I sat down and I wrote emails.
To all these people.
No, I selected. I
Okay.
selected 2 and I wrote emails to them. And I went home. And that particular day, it felt so fruitful. That was a search that was so fruitful. I was like, today is one of those days, that's a small win. You check it off your list and you go home and you're feeling happy.
Do you think that that small win felt nicer after the rejection compared to, just leading your life and getting the cuts, the 2 rejections, then this happened? Like, do you feel like...
I think so.
Yeah.
Because if I had not gotten no's and I had gotten maybes from all these people, then my focus on that particular institution and that particular task wouldn't have been as sharp. You get? Because now I'd be thinking, how about? And when you have options, decision making becomes very difficult.
Yeah.
Actually, the reason why a lot of people don't make decisions is options. When there are too many, it kind of causes some sort of decision making paralysis of some kind. But when your options are 2 or 3, you stay focused.
Yeah.
You stay focused. So and also I think and also now.
Wow, you have so much, Hey, guy, what are those?
What happened?
You have so much sound bites or pieces of
tweetable moments.
Yes, quotes. Like, oh my goodness. I think, is it the reading? Is it the experiences? Is it just you? I don't know. Like, every single moment you just think something, I'm like, I just get lost. I'm like, oh man, by the way, I'm just going there, I come back, then another one bangs me like that, and I'm like, okay.
we should write a book of quotes, eh?
Yeah. Like what's her name? What's the name of the celebrity who just launched a book and the book is full of quotes? A singer, popular.
Is it Lady Gaga?
No, Kenyan.
Oh, there's a singer who's Akole.
Yeah. Her book is full of quotes, so you should get a book like that one. Yeah. You disappeared again.
I'm good at this, eh? It was just a 1-second glitch.
Yeah.
I was saying, I follow Akothe on social media.
Yeah.
And I think she's a very brave woman. I think she's doing a lot of good things that a lot of women are not bold enough to do, which I think is beautiful. So anyway, maybe when you get to see the book, and read the quotes. Yeah.
Okay.
Then we can add on to the already existing ones. So where were we though?
Yeah. So you were talking about that. Yes.
Options. Decisions. Yeah, the options. So
yeah.
So when you have too many, then you keep going back and forth around it. But so it was also, you see how crisp my focus was. I left the institution. I didn't think of calling or going. I just went into a cyber cafe and wrote unsolicited emails to these people, and then I went home. It's one of those days when you get home and you do your dishes happily and singing and thinking that was a win.
And that must feel really good, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that felt really good. It felt really good. And
especially the washing dishes part.
I know. I was like, this is such a productive day.
Yeah. Then people had chores. Then you're there like, oh man, I feel good. Even enjoying the chore. Do you like chores? Like the washing dishes thing?
Very, very, very much.
Okay.
My emails are acting up. I'm sorry. I hope you didn't get that on your end. Okay. So loud. My inbox was still open. So yeah, that day was, it felt like a win. And you know what was better? I remember I sent this email on a Tuesday. I will never forget. And on Thursday, I had this really tiny Motorola phone, but I had Gmail on it, so I could get my emails on my phone.
Yeah.
I was a bit techie.
You could figure out how to add an app into...
I had Gmail on my phone, on that Motorola. It was a Motorola 7. I can't remember. But I could see emails on my phone. So I sent these unsolicited emails on a Tuesday, and then on a Thursday, one of the people that I'd contacted wrote back to me. And this was like, oh my God, this person actually wrote back. And the email was a short email. Said, thank you very much for your interest, because when I wrote the unsolicited email, I expressed myself. I said what I had studied in school. So in addition to wanting to do, a human health project, I customized my unsolicited emails according to the research interests of those people. At least I had that sort of insight then. Yeah.
Because of this lady whom you met.
Yes, because you can't write to a researcher who's working on sesaflies that you want to work on ticks. You have to be able to craft your interests according, to what's relevant to them.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe even ticks and sesaflies are close together because they're all insects. Maybe you want to work on malaria and this person works on something completely unrelated.
Yeah.
Right? So what this person was working on was, at the time, they had a huge research interest in chemical signaling in what we call pheromones. The chemicals that animals use to communicate with each other, insects as well. And so it was a lot more chemistry. In fact, it was called chemical ecology. Remember how I said in the last episode, I was in a field called chemical ecology, but every time I said that, people would get the chemical, but then the ecology was a bit confusing. And so the whole concept was to understand interactions between organisms, but from a chemical basis. So that's what chemical ecology is all about, and this is what this person was working on. And so because in my master's courses, I had studied 2 modules on something we call ecological biochemistry, and it's everything about interactions between organisms at different trophic levels. And the chemical basis of some of those interactions. So I had a good understanding of what that was, and so I understood what this person was, what their research was about.
Yeah.
And so I packaged myself in that way and said I studied biochemistry, I've done a ton of things, but I also have done modules on ecological biochemistry, and that ties up with what you guys are doing. And so I might just have, like the fundamental knowledge to be able to fit into your research group. And so this person wrote, and they said it was very nice that I wrote to them, and but they prefer that we would meet and speak in person.
Good sign.
And so very good sign. And they said, what? So I wrote back and said, what day and time?
In the cyber, not in the computer.
No, on my phone actually.
Oh, okay.
I wrote back the moment I saw this email. I wrote back immediately. I didn't even run to the cyber. I just wrote on my phone. I asked what day and time would be convenient for you. And so I remember this was a Thursday. So he said the next week on a Thursday. And so I started to get organized. Reprint my CV, spruce it up, collect like a, what do you call it? Like a, not a final copy. What do you call those ones? Like a copy of my transcript, but it's not it's not the final copy. What do you call it? A provisional transcript. For my master's, and I put together all my undergraduate transcripts, gathered everything, made that nice fat envelope, and I was ready to go meet this person. And so I showed up the next week on a Thursday. I introduced myself. He was very happy to talk to me. We sat in his office. He looked through, because I brought my paperwork. Can you imagine if I had just showed up without papers, without nothing? Because he said, "Do you bring your CV? Did you bring your transcripts?" I said, "Yes, I brought my..." And
it's not like they asked you before. It's just...
They didn't. And for me, I've highlighted that because over the years, I've been able to, work with people who are younger than me. And sometimes I'm just astounded at the unpreparedness of some of these folks. They show up in a place and it's like, or I've had a chance to be able to look at, for example, students writing emails looking for internships and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just see how much effort was put into writing that email. Sometimes there's no effort at all. I mean, they don't even do the basics, which would be like write your name, with capital letters. Like the first letter of your name should be capitalized.
Wow.
Small things. Like,
yeah, the small
I am
thing.
so and so, and the I is a small I. Or your greeting line is hello. And you're writing an unsolicited email.
Uh-huh. For
Hello.
someone listening to this, I don't know, and they're like, what's wrong with that? What should I be writing then?
Sarah, presentation is everything.
Yeah.
Remember, this is someone who doesn't know you.
Mm-hmm.
Their first impression of you is what they see from you.
Yeah.
So, for example, in my situation, the first impression that this scientist had of me was my email.
Yeah.
It was the 3 sentences that I wrote in my email and the attachments that I put in there and how I went about it. The second level of, impression that he got is when I showed up at his office. And, tagging along with all my paperwork, everything, including making the effort to go get a provisional transcript. Now, when I think about that, that act alone, I look at it and I'm like, that was good. Because in any circumstance, you would not want to present yourself to someone who you're hoping will help you find something that you desperately need. And you show up unprepared. It's the equivalent of going to a shamba without a jembe.
Yeah.
Or going to the shamba, but the jembe is very blunt. The panga is very blunt. It's not working. The handle is falling off.
Yeah.
And you came to, to secure yourself a piece of land where you can do something with. And all your tools are just ramshackle. Nothing is working.
Yeah.
You can do that, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so now when I think about it, I really hold, that in high esteem, because I think I felt good about it. It made me feel like, okay, I have my act together. I can now, this is like world-class scientist. This is not, for him to spare 15 minutes of his time to have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
You must take that very seriously. Right, anyway, so we did, and we had a conversation, and we spoke, and he asked for my papers, and so he's like, oh, you brought your papers. I'm like, oh, okay, good. Then we did, and then we spoke about how I still had a semester to go. And now, here's the kicker. He said, oh, well, I do understand that you want to do human health research, but I don't have a project in human health research. I have a project in agricultural entomology. And then at that stage, my jaw dropped, and I think he could see the shock on my face. I'm like, no, this can't be happening, not today. Everything was great until now. So he was quick to add that I shouldn't be worried, because the sort of skills and the sort of like fundamental stuff I've done in school, the methods and everything, would be a good fit for the sort of project that he wanted to do. And the rest of the things, I would just come and learn on the job if I was interested in working on a project like that. But he said he wouldn't even get started until maybe about 4 months down the road. And 4 months down the road, I was supposed to be back in school, winding up on my second semester. So he just said to me, you know what, when you're done with your final exams, just write me an email, remind me that you are here, and that we had a discussion about you being a potential candidate for this project, and then we'll take it from there. And so that was that.
Oh,
and
amazing!
Amazing.
Do you want to mention the name of this person?
Absolutely, and because this has also been my mentor the last 10 years. This is Professor Baldwin Toto. Baldwin Toto. He's a chemist by training. He's now a world-renowned chemical ecologist. He's actually extraordinary professor at the University of Pretoria, South Africa. And he's mentored lots and lots of master students, PhD students, some of whom have gone on to become, very senior people in academic institutions and, world-class researchers. So
did you make a decision at that time? That yes?
At that stage, I was like, that was a curveball. I didn't see it coming. Like, I hadn't thought that's how it was going to swing. So I had to, I went home, I thought about it. But then I thought about all the circumstances surrounding me getting there and having that conversation. And just something inside of me, now in my head, I'm stuck on health. But something in me is just telling me, don't let this opportunity go. You never know what you might find here. And I'm the sort of person who, yes, I do use my head to make decisions, but I also use my heart a lot.
Okay.
And when I get into a situation and I feel, you just get a vibe that this is not a bad idea. This is a nice place. This is, and we are talking about ICP. ICP is an international research center. And so the facilities that are there are world class. The sort of scientific community that is there is world class. So that, of course, that helped a lot.
Yeah.
With my decision. But also I just felt a certain sort of ease with that idea. And I was like, I've been to a lot of places and this is an interesting opportunity. It's swinging in a way that I had not thought. But then what would actually happen if you did that? And also because we had this conversation and he said to me, it doesn't really matter whether now you start out with a project in agriculture and entomology, you can always cross over.
Yeah.
You can always cross over. What you need now, more than anything else, is skills.
Yes.
And I took that, I took that word with me. And the more I thought about it, I was like, yes, that's very true. Because if I have the skills, then transitioning is always a possibility.
I love that this guy just meets, reads an email from this girl and is ready to, knows very well what she really wants, but he's ready to gear her to the right or to something that he thinks is a good thing for her career. Like, this is someone he doesn't know and he's considerate about, he's ready. He even knows that that's something that you're not, you're not probably be open to like immediately, and actually tries to convince you why. Because that's like trying to convince you why you should still, go down that road.
But remember, this is someone also who's mentored.
Yeah, so
tons and tons of students. So he knows. So he would, I think, he would quickly relate with, what was going on in
your head.
He's also looking to, attract, good students. And he was very focused on his students being all-rounded.
Okay.
And by all-rounded means you're not only good academically, but you're also a wholesome person. And because you're going to join a team, and if you're, quickly, I believe you could be able to deduce the sort of personality that I had, the sort of person he would be bringing on board, because it's not just enough to have people who understand the theories, for people who understand glycolysis and things like those, but also it's important that the people that you have on your team have some sort of aptitude, because there are people who are very gifted in the sciences, they do well in class, but they don't have like a scientific aptitude. And this is one of those things. Aptitude is just not over and above, the intelligence and the the academic ability to be able to, to study the course and to understand the theories and, and all of that. You have to have additional qualities about you as a person, right? You have to become a researcher, for example, you have to be curious.
Yeah.
You have to be intrigued by how things work.
Yeah.
There are lots of people who want to see things work, but they are not interested in the how. You have to be very tenacious. You have to be very consistent. You have to be determined. There are all these things that make up the whole.
Yeah.
But then often people just look at the academic ability, and people don't ask themselves, am I a good fit for this kind of? And for someone, I believe for someone like him who had been mentoring students for a long time, even up to the point when I showed up, he knows what a potentially good research student looks like. He can quickly tell. You know, I mean, I guess this is a skill that you hone as you go along. I mean, even I now, if I meet like a younger person who's, for example, looking for an internship and all of that, it doesn't take me too long to be able to figure it out. To be able to figure out that this person, this one won't go, you know, all the 9 yards. You know, they are good academically, but they might not have what it takes to stay the course, because it's one thing to check, you know, the boxes in terms of did you pass in your chemistry units and your biology units and whatever. It's another thing to have the qualities that it takes to stay the course in research. I'm sure you also would agree with me. It's more than just academics.
As in,
it's everything else.
I've never really thought about it like out loud, or like really sat on that thought. But when you say it, then I'm like,
yeah.
But I'm like, I can't point it out though. Like, yes, that's a thing, but I can't point out what are those things that. Because I remember there's this farewell party, and someone commented that, you know, being, you know, getting to, you know, being a PhD student, it's really about how bright you are. It's how persevering you can be when it comes to, you know, pursuing that, because it can be a tough journey.
It is, but over and above having the academic ability, there are other things about you that come into play.
Are there things that you want to point out?
For example, I would say to have some sort of success in research, I mean, other than just being curious about how things work, you have to have a natural ability to learn. You know, it's one thing that you could be academically gifted, but it's another to be a lifelong learner.
Teachable spirit,
yes, but a lifelong learner. That even without being within the confines of a classroom or, you know, being in school,
you're constantly learning. You're curious and you want to learn. You're
curious. You're reading material. You're consuming information. You're curious about how things work over and above school.
Yeah.
You know, so you're constantly. This is not something that comes naturally to everyone. There are people who are born learners. They're actually lifelong learners. And then, you know, there are other people. And on top of that, then you also have to have, you know, like a strong problem-solving ability. You have to be the person who sees in between the lines. You know, those sort of things are not things that are taught in a classroom.
Yeah.
You don't go for a course to learn how to see between the lines. You don't go for a course to learn how to be methodical. You don't go for a course to learn how to be a lifelong learner. These are things that either come naturally to you or they don't.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those things that I think about this a lot. I think about, for example, when students are in high school and they want to go to uni and they want to do certain courses and they are told you have the cluster points to do it. But there are never discussions of what sort of aptitude would you need for somebody to become like a successful lawyer? You know, what sort of, you know, what other qualities do you need to possess? How do you need to be as a person naturally
to pursue
for you to be able
career.
to be a good fit for that career?
Yeah.
I mean, there are no spaces to be able to do this. Maybe now with life coaching and all of these things and career coaches and stuff like that, that's beginning to come up. But I still think it's not information that is available for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, even to be able to, I mean, for the lack of a better word, maybe a happy accident. Like I just stumbled into it. I guess I had the qualities. I mean, I learn. Even now, I still learn. Like, and I still strive to learn things that are outside of, you know, science and research. And I consume a lot of material in terms of podcasts and things and books and stuff. But you see, this is also something I've been doing for a long time in my life since I was a child.
Yeah.
So this comes naturally to me. You get, and the other things that I didn't get them from anywhere. They're just the way they were. You know?
Yeah.
And they all contribute into helping me become like a, you know, do good research. Sometimes I find, I always like to solve problems. I'm like, if you can't do this, what is the most efficient way we can do something? I'm always asking myself these questions, So, it's something that's not talked about. But I guess for somebody who deals with students, and for example, my former supervisor, he was possibly quickly able to tell. And I think that's why we were able to have a very rich discussion around the project that was available, around how I had initially thought about it, and his impression about how I'd be able to use that for the next level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you take up the project after finishing your second year, right? Second semester.
So I finished second semester. I write him an email. I say, I'm that person from then. I'm done. And, I want to take the project.
Yeah.
And he says, great, brilliant. Come on this day, bring your paperwork, get the process started. Because, we just got the funding to be able to do this. And I'm in a position to recruit. So, yeah. And so we have to do all the processes and all of that, find potential supervisors, because of course, he works for a research institute. I'm coming from a university. I need to get a degree. The research institute is not an academic institution. They are not the ones who are going to give me the degree. So I need a supervisor. So I already have a supervisor in the center. That's him. But I need supervisors at the university. And now he now has to start talking with my lecturers, and I have to identify someone who I believe could supervise me, but also someone who they could work together with. So that was the next step.
Yeah. So would you want to say in brief what the project was about?
Yeah. So I came in to work on chemical signaling in what we call a tritrophic interaction. And I use the word tritrophic intentionally here. This is a science podcast.
Yeah.
So I can use jargon. I can be lazy and use jargon.
Okay. What is tritrophic?
Tritrophic is as it is. Trophic. Those trophic levels where an organism belongs in the, in the food web. Right? So tritrophic. So 3 organisms. So it was an interaction between a tree, the cashew tree. I know you like cashew nuts. I know a lot of people like cashew nuts. I won't even ask you whether you like cashew nuts, because I know almost everyone likes cashew nuts.
Okay.
So the cashew tree, and an insect that likes to eat the leaves of the cashew tree and to basically damage the leaves and the fruits and the flowers. So that's what we call in chemical ecology terms a herbivore pest. And an ant that lives on the tree, which is like a defender of the tree. So this ant lives on the tree. It takes care of some other small insects like aphids and things, and those aphids give it sugar, so it lives on the tree. And then while it's on the tree, it chases away now these pests that come. So in ecology lingo, it's called a natural enemy, right?
Yeah.
So I was supposed to look at the chemical signals that operate within that system.
Okay.
Yes, and to understand what does the tree produce that makes the ant stay on the tree? What does the ant produce that deters the pest from coming? How does the pest perceive these chemicals, and what does that mean? And what chemicals are these? So there was a lot of chemistry. There was a lot of analytical chemistry, separation techniques, mostly gas chromatography, mass spectrometry is what I used predominantly, because I was working with non-polar substances, volatile compounds, and stuff like that.
What's the end goal of all this?
The end goal was to be able to identify some of those chemical cues that might help, kind of like, how will I say it, that might be useful for the management of that sort of interaction. Either to be used as a deterrent for the pest, or to be used to augment the natural enemies to even become, better protectors of the tree and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yes. So there was a pest management. The key outcome would be to find something that can be useful for pest management.
Yes. Using the natural ways of doing things.
Using the natural ways, by understanding the chemical basis of those natural interactions between these 3 organisms.
Okay, great.
Yes.
I love that explanation. It seems like interesting work. Like this is not like topics that I have come across so far, like when talking about them in depth. So that's interesting.
It's chemical ecology for you. Very, very interesting. Looking at interactions that you wouldn't ordinarily think about. Stuff that happens, but you're not able to detect it because, for example, the chemical cues that operate within that particular system are very subtle, right? So you, as a human being, cannot be able to pick up on those cues. But these insects, they perceive these cues. They behave in ways. In fact, their behavior is actually shaped by these cues. And on top of that, even the tree itself as a plant is sensitive to these cues and produces them and all of that. It's a very intricate system, very subtle, but it's there. And these sort of interactions operate in the environment virtually at every level.
So were you able to find out the chemicals?
Yes, I did find the chemicals. I was able to identify them and actually publish that work in the Journal of Chemical Ecology, which is like a premier journal for chemical ecology for that field. And I believe my publication is out there for that particular work. And I think the cherry on the cake with that particular piece of work is that an image from some of the images I took while I was doing field work was featured as a cover, as the cover of the journal for that particular issue when my paper was published.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a highlight. It was a highlight for my master's training. Yes.
So you're finished with your master's at this point, right?
Yes, master's is done.
What happens next?
So, of course, when you're done, first you start off by compiling your thesis. While I was compiling my thesis, so I finished my thesis, I submitted it to the university. The university process is another thing altogether, right? So when
tell me about it.
I know, yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yes. It doesn't change. The more it changes, the more it remains the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I submitted my thesis and my thesis was out there. So after submitting the thesis, because remember the first objective of going into this project was to get my academic degree. So the thesis came first, right? So I submitted the thesis and as I was waiting for the processes to happen is when I was writing this paper. And because I was on a studentship, remember when I was offered this project, it was offered to me in the form of a studentship.
Yeah, that means you're being paid. Right?
Yes, I was getting a small stipend to keep me going, and so I still had a few months left.
So that
with my studentship.
Did that help you with finishing off your tuition?
Yes. Virtually 90% of what I got, I was just putting it away, and so that